This video will contain spoilers. If you can't tell by the coughing, I don't feel well. A very brief recap, or at least as brief as I can keep it, as to what happened. I'm recording this on Monday the 20th. I'm gonna have to do a bit of maths here on October the 4th. That doesn't sound right, but I'm just gonna have to go with it. Which, if my maths is right, it's a Saturday. Um, I went to see a comedian on the way over. I started presenting some cold symptoms, and then actually during the show I was like, fuck, I actually do have a cold. And then I was working on the Sunday, and when I woke up I felt absolutely terrible. But I had energy, so I thought I'm just gonna have to go on to work because I really don't want to take any more days off. Um and while I was in work, I realized this is kind of like this feels like what I went through when I watched that Lord of the Rings animated movie, because I watched that film on a Friday. I felt I don't like it's hard to describe, especially since it's happened nearly a year ago. But I felt absolutely terrible. But I thought, you know what? I have energy. I'm gonna go see the film anyway. I had to see it, and then that was on a Friday. On the Saturday, I felt sick. Like I have a stomach bug. But I didn't throw up, which is very odd, because usually whenever I have a bug, I throw up on the day I start presenting symptoms, and then by the next day I feel fine. But I didn't throw up on the Saturday, and then it wasn't until the Sunday that I started throwing up. Um, and that was the end of that. And I thought maybe this is what this is. So I'm going to start throwing up on the Monday. I didn't. I felt fine on Monday. I just was still getting over the cold. And then there were some like wee mini symptoms over the next couple of days, but it was whatever. But flash forward to Thursday, which, hold on, the 16th, I think that is. I I start to feel a bit cold, which isn't surprising because I was not wearing a shirt. My my door was open, and I think the window might have been open as well. So I lay down in bed and just, pull the blankets around me, try to get warm. And say I was there for like an hour. It wasn't until about 15 minutes and I started to feel warm. And I was like, I'm really warm. I need to get out of here. And I got out. And I was like, this feels weird. The best way I can describe it is I'm warm on the outside. Like the surface layer of my skin is warm, but my insides are cold. Like, and it feels like when you have a fever when you have a stomach bug. But I don't have a stomach bug because, yeah, I've had some other wee tiny symptoms like coughing and headaches and shit, but I haven't thrown up. And this was on Thursday. I hoped it would go away, but it didn't. I went to bed early, and when I woke up on Friday, I felt fine. So fine that I decided I was going to go to the cinema. And before I continue the story, I'm going to have to do this review, The Black Phone. Mixed ratings. I watched it on all four. Partly with Ginger, he had to stop after like half an hour because he had to go off early. And fully with Bin Man. Mason Thames, Ethan Hawke, Madeline McGraw, Mike Bailey isn't in it, he's retired. Right. I remember when this film came out, a lot of people were talking about it and it got a lot of glaze. And my opinion on the film is that it's good, but it's just not that good. It's I've noticed that like a lot of Stephen King books, or at least the adaptations of books. I've never read the books. They will sort of introduce a sci-fi slash fantasy concept, and then just won't like they won't give it any sort of context. It's just this exists, get used to it. And this is based on a book by his son, and this does the same thing, I feel. Um, there's not really anything wrong with it, it's just a pattern I've noticed. But I enjoy the film, it's just not the masterpiece that everyone says it is. Like, really, the only standout is Ethan Hawke's performance. And that's all I can really say about the film. I wasn't expecting Gwen to swear so much, and it has actually become excessive. Like it was like, oh goddamn, the first time, but after that, it was just shut up. Especially with her attempts at like creating unique insults. It's just cringy. Yeah, I decided to go to the cinema and I watched Black Phone 2 universally or negative or mixed ratings. I watched it in the cinema. Jason Thames, Ethan Hawke, Madeline McGraw. Um, I'll do the review before I continue the story. Honestly, I think this film's better than the first one. I think I'm gonna guess that's an unpopular opinion. I don't care. Maybe it's the fact that I watched it in the cinema, or maybe it's the fact that Mason Thames gets the main credit in this film, but he shouldn't be. He is a side character in this film. Um, I I seen a video where Ethan Hawke was asked, in a world that has so many unnecessary sequels, prequels, reboots, so on and so on, why does Black Phone deserve one? He said that Black Phone does something that he doesn't think another film has ever done before, where the first film was about Finn's relationship with Gwen, but this film is about Gwen's relationship with Finn. And I was thinking, like, how's that going to work out if Finn is still the main character? Like, wouldn't you need to make Gwen the main character for that to work out? Gwen is the main character in all but credit. Like, Madeline McGraw has maybe not more screen time, but she has more presence, and goddamn the acting of her. Um, some of the film is basically uh, Nightmare on Elm Street, which is kind of like it's not a direct rip off, but it is just like do something original. Um, more unnecessary swearing in it. The only sort of purpose it serves in this film is to make fun of religion and stuff like that. And yeah, those people were being extremists, but at the same time, don't call her like a. I think she called her a sanctimonious twat or twat, American accent. Um, it just sounds weird coming off from her. Uh, I think a way they could have done it better was to have it the way it is, but then at the end, when they get tossed by the grabber and they get sliced by, I'm guessing, the his skates. Um, I think what they could have done is when they first land after being tossed, if the grabber, like, if he skated over their fingers and chopped them off, and they were like, fuck, that could have been done really well. Because, swearing isn't. It's not pointless. Like, it exists for a reason. And everyone knows. Moving on. Finn's character in this is kind of annoying. Because why does he. Why did he go from, like, this average kid that gets bullied in the first film to the bully in the second film? And you just try to, like, justify it by saying, oh, that this is like the 800th guy this week that has asked me if I'm the kid that killed the grabber and all that. And yeah, I got that would get annoying, and I wouldn't like beat the shit out of him, especially since I don't have that in me, physically or mentally. But it's just what, like, even thinking about it from an acting standpoint, Mason Thames going from playing Finn to playing. I was about to say Toothless. I'm always about to say Toothless. I was gonna say Flynn fucking Rider. That's Tangled. You know who I'm talking about? The guy from How to Train Your Dragon. Um, Going from playing Finn to him, like, it just seems right. But him going from Finn in the first film to Finn in the second film, bully, weed smoker, just like overall dick. It just doesn't feel right. And now that I think about it, the film isn't just Nightmare on Elm Street in the fact that, you know, he's trying to kill Gwen in her dreams, but it's also the way that they defeat the grabber is kind of similar to the way they defeat Freddy in the first film. Now, to be clear, I've never seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, but I'm aware that the way that the first one ends is that the girl is like, I'm not afraid anymore. I am brave. And because of that, he loses all his power. And it's kind of similar. And this is not exactly the same. There's this three kids that he killed long before the events of the first film, and they need to find the bodies, because if they find the bodies, then the the bodies can go up to heaven or whatever, and he loses his power because this power is kind of like run on fear, and he's basically tormenting the kids in the. I'm just gonna call it purgatory. I think that's the best term for it. Um, and speaking of the kids, you see them die very, very brutally, and it's just, I'm surprised the MPAA or whatever the organization is allowed that. Like, I thought. I get that Final Destination 2 was 22 years ago, but I thought that they were still kind of, you can't have like a 5-year-old die brutally in a film like that. But it was kind of, it was like really cool, the effects and shit. Like getting burned alive, getting your head chopped off by a windowsill, stuff like that. I was talking to. I've got a friend that works at the cinema that I was talking to before the film started, and her shift ended before the film ended, so we didn't get to talk after. And she messaged me and she was like, "Oh, sorry, hope you enjoy your film." I was like, "Yeah, I'd really recommend the film." And she was like, "Oh no, it's too scary for me." It's like, you've seen horror films before, so it's not like you're just like, you don't watch horror films, because I know you do. And this film is not scary. There's a couple of jump scares, but only like two of them got me. I think that's all I can say about the film. So maybe it's the icy cold setting of the film, but during the film, I was absolutely freezing. And that is a common problem at the cinema. But I thought I came prepared because I was wearing a t-shirt and a half zip. Usually I'll just wear like a shirt. But no, I came with a half zip. I would have wore a hoodie, except I couldn't find one. But that was absolutely freezing. And the plan was I was gonna watch this, our Black Phone, then Bin Man, Ginger, and Dylan were going to. They were going. I'm going to assume they went to McDonald's. I never actually asked where they went, but I have Ginger on Instagram Maps, so I was just gonna like look to see where he was, show up because there's like a 40-minute difference between the end of Black Phone and the start of the ads for Smashing Machine. I thought, right, I'll use it as an excuse to turn the car on so that I can have the heat on. But as I turned the car on, Bin Man walked up to me and was like, "Don't tell me user, done with wherever he's went." Yeah, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm just waiting for the other two to pull up because they like took a detour." I was like, "Fuck." Eventually, they pull up. I was like, "Please, let me in your car," because I know his car. He's faster than mine. And we did sit in his car for a while, and it was nice. Like, I felt fine. But then we went to watch Smashing Machine, and I'll end at this. It's not an end, but it doesn't end like on that day. It ends today, the 20th of October. I'll do the review first in that case. The Smashing Machine mixed ratings, directed by Benny Safdie. I watched it in cinema with Ginger, Bin Man, and Dylan. Also forgot to mention both Black Phone films were directed by Scott Derrickson. Excuse me, I have the hiccups, not great. Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt. Mark Kerr also plays himself at the very end of the film. I enjoyed the film, but when I get to finishing the story, you'll understand like why my experience was kind of ruined. I don't actually know what to say other than how this is supposed to be like The Rock redeeming himself, becoming an actor rather than a star. And as for his first attempt, it's not going to come immediately. Like it's not like he's going to be able to put out a Hannibal Lecter type performance in his first attempt at acting, but he does have a decent attempt for his first time. There are some things that I can't tell if it's bad acting or it's decisions he intentionally made. Like, for example, during the scene where Emily Blunt tries to kill herself and he grabs the gun off her. Or no, it was after that when she tries swallowing the pills and takes them from her hands and like hugs her and sits down with her. It's like he's staring off into nothing, and in my head, it does look kind of goofy. It does look like he forgot to act, but at the same time, it does look right. Sorry about that. I was home alone, but not one, but two family members came home, and it's two that there are three other family members in the house. One of them is great. The other two hate each other, but they don't act like they hate each other. They keep on. I can understand it because I feel like I do the same thing with other people outside of my family. The younger one will go up to the older one and just tell him a bunch of random bullshit the older one doesn't care about, and the younger one knows the older one doesn't care about it, but he has this need to tell everyone everything, which I have that too, which is maybe why I do these reviews. But at least when I make it in review format, like video on YouTube, you have the ability, you have the choice of just not watching it. You don't have to listen to 20 minutes of rambling. And the other one instead of just going, fuck off, I don't care. Just, uh-huh. And then uh, we'll just try to, like, guess what the younger one is saying. And then, like, just assume and be like, he must be talking about, school. Well, your teacher's a pedophile. I wasn't talking about my teacher. Your teacher's a pedophile. This has been happening for years. I want it to fucking end. But moving on. Right, yeah, The Rock's first attempt at acting. I think that it's either he forgot the act, or it's just it was a deliberate choice he made in his acting, and it's just I've never been in the situation where my girlfriend tries to kill herself, so I don't know what my reaction would be like, whether it's like keeping my eyes on her or just being in shock and just staring out into space. So this wasn't the film, but it is the stepping stone. Like, something else will come. That's all I can really say about the film. So moving back to the story, it was hell watching this film because almost immediately I was freezing. I was shivering. I could hear myself breathing, and I thought that Dylan sitting next to me was going to be able to hear my breathing, but apparently he didn't. He knew I was freezing earlier, but he didn't know it was happening during the film. It wasn't until we exited that he saw like how terribly I was shivering and how pale I was and all that. But yeah, like, I just wanted the film to end ASAP so I could go home and lie down, maybe even go to sleep. The only problem with me going to sleep was that I would have been home by 11, and I think if I went to sleep at 11, I would have woke up early, because, go to bed earlier, wake up earlier. And I didn't want to do that because I have work at 4 on Saturday, and I just had a feeling it was going to fuck with my flow. So I tried to stay up, but I'm telling this out of order. I don't remember when, but at some point during the film, eventually I started to feel warm, but then I realized it was, the outside was warm, but the inside was cold. So what happened was, when I got home, I asked my mum to make me a hot water bottle so that my feet were freezing in particular for some reason. Like, I've never dealt with cold feet. Excuse me. Like, while I was wearing socks and shoes, it's only when I'm barefoot that would be a thing for me. So I just don't know what was going on. And then after that, went to bed, watched a bit of YouTube, and eventually my mum was like, "Oh, just try to take a nap or something." And I was like, I knew that if I tried to take a nap, it would backfire, and I would just get like a full night's rest, and I would wake up too early and fuck my flow and all that. Um, I attempted it anyway, and I got maybe 15 minutes sleep. Or not. I don't know if I fell asleep or not, but I at least rested my eyes for 15 minutes. And the only thing, only stopped because I got a phone call from Ginger saying that him and Dylan were concerned about me, like just asking how I am. And I explained to them, and then eventually my mum was, after the call, I went to go to the bathroom, and mum was like, "Oh, maybe you should try taking a bath." And I did try taking a bath, and it was nice. But overall it didn't really change anything. Um, so Saturday, I woke up. I felt much better than I did on Friday, but I was very dizzy. And I was like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to drive. Like if I try to drive, especially on the road I have to go down to get to work, it's very very bendy. I will crash. So I kept on thinking to myself, I'll just put it off. Just I've got X amount of hours until work. Hopefully I recover by then. Um, but eventually it was like, nah, that this isn't gonna happen. So I phoned the office, said, I don't feel well. The guy that I phoned, he texted back and he said, "Can you at least do the bed call?" And I explained to him what the problem was, and but I said it's not a definite no. Um, and my mum offered to drive me to work if I do have to go in, but eventually the guy texted back and he said, "No, but we've got someone else." I just dealt with random headaches and temperature bullshit for the rest of the day. At night, I thought, you know what, I've got some like sleep tea downstairs. I'll make myself a cup of that and drank that. Eventually, I went to bed early again, and by early I mean 1:30. Usually, I go to bed at 3. I fell asleep, and I woke up at 2 or 2:30, whatever. I had to go to the bathroom, so I went, came back, tried to go back to sleep, couldn't. I closed my eyes for 1 hour without falling asleep. And eventually, I kind of thought to myself, maybe I'm like trying too hard to go to sleep. Like maybe I'm straining myself. So let's just restart from zero. Open my eyes and try to do it again. It didn't work. And so I thought, you know what? When I was a kid during Christmas and I had like Christmas Eve and I couldn't sleep, what I would do is I would sleep at the foot of my bed. And sometimes that does help. It helps me go to sleep faster. Um, I tried that one, like close my eyes for an hour and nothing. Um, so eventually it was like, fuck it. You know what? I'm gonna do something that I do when it's like when I am sick, like bedbound sick, and really the only thing I can do is rest. I'll put on a meme compilation on my iPad, and because it's nighttime, I'll turn the brightness all the way down, and I'll just watch it until my eyes start to droop, and hopefully I go to sleep. It didn't work. Eventually, I closed my iPad down, and I just sort of said it. I went back to the head of my bed, and I had my iPad next to me. I didn't bother with like putting it on the table or anything, but I dropped it, and I hit a plate that was on the floor that Like, there's a bunch of rubbish that I've been meaning to clean up, but it's just anytime it's like with my videos, anytime that I realize, oh yeah, I need to do that, I'm busy or just not feeling well or something like that. And I thought that was really loud. It's gonna wake up my mum. And she's gonna come in and be like, "You alright?" But she didn't, and like that really. Maybe it was the sleep deprivation, but that really fucked with my head. I was thinking like maybe I'm not like this isn't. I'm not sick, and I'm not trying to get to sleep. I am inside like the fucking Matrix or something. I am hallucinating. I have gone insane. And 5 minutes later, I passed out. I this happened at like 5 in the morning. I woke up at 10, watched 10 minutes of YouTube. My eyes started to droop, so I went back to sleep. I woke up at about 12. I watched a bit more of it was a Team Fortress video. Played a bit of DMC, um, and then I went back to sleep again, and I woke up at like 20 to 4. Just to be clear, this was yesterday, Sunday. I also had work that day, and I forgot to call them. And I called them. It was the same guy that picked up yesterday, and I said I'm still not feeling well. And the guy said, "Hold on, when are you supposed to start?" I said, "About 4:05." Like, Alan, you're giving us like 15 minutes to find someone to replace you. It's not good enough. And in my head, I was thinking, well, any other time I've called in, which I'll admit, it's not been as short notice as this, but they've always said, if you're sick, you're sick. So, like, screw you. um, and the guy was like, look, can you please just at least do the T call? And I was like, uh, can you give me a minute? I just need to check some things. Sure. I muted him. I called down my mum and asked, would be able to drive me to work. They're saying that it's too short notice, so I need to go in for just now. She said, fine. Um, I swear to God, if that's work. Uh, there's been a bunch of stuff that's been going on with the clients. So during the T call, there's only 3 clients now. It used to be 6, I believe, but one of them went to the hospital months ago, and we just haven't heard any updates since. So I'm just kind of going off the assumption that he's dead. Like, hopefully he isn't, because he was a client that I liked. But I'm just going to assume that when a client dies, like in hospital or something like that, they just don't bother telling us. Another client they had permanently taken me off the rota because I'm not a qualified nurse. Um, they need nurses, they don't need carers, because that client is like on his deathbed basically. And the third client is staying somewhere else for like 2 weeks. So it was just 3 clients. One of the clients wants me at his house at 4:15. Excuse me. Oh, that hurt. Um, Another expects me at his house at 20 to 5, and this one gets really angry if you don't like follow his instructions exactly. And the third client, he knows that I could walk into another client's house and they could be dead, and I need to perform CPR and then speak to the police and all that, and that's going to take a while, and that's the reason why I'm so late to his house. So he doesn't care what time we come. So went to the first client's house, the one that expected us there at a quarter past. The door was locked, so I rang up the guy and I said, "Did anyone tell you that client had cancelled?" And he said, no." And he dug through his emails. He's like, "Oh, someone did tell me." I was like, "So, if someone did tell you, then that means that really it wasn't 20 minutes notice, it was an hour's notice. Because the next client would have been the guy that expects us at his house at 20 to 5. That's an hour. You had an hour to find someone else to replace me." So, yeah, I'm really starting to not like this guy. And the worst thing is, he shares a name with one of my friends. And it's just, I'm going to associate that name with this prick rather than my friend. Same way that there was a guy that worked at when I was a traffic warden who I've made a couple of videos about this. That guy is the devil. And he's ruined the name Jack for me. But I went to the 20 to 5 guy's house. I got there 10 minutes early. So just sat on my phone for 10 minutes. I came in. The guy said he was feeling sick, so he didn't want any tea or a sandwich or anything like that. He just wanted his tablets. So I gave him his tablets, I emptied his bin as well. And that was that. And then, oh, and it wasn't until then that I realized I forgot a pen. So I had to phone the guy again and say that, and he was actually forgiving. He was like, "Okay, I'll just I'll tell the carer who's doing the bag call to just like skip a thing in the report book so that it can be told like in chronological order." Went to the final guy's house, no problems there, and then went home. The rest of the night, it's just been sort of up and down, but it's not really anything major. And then today, I slept no problem. I did have a stomach ache in the morning, but I think that's because literally all I had yesterday was I had a chicken pita for dinner. And then I realized that because I wasn't feeling well, I get these like chicken curry pasty things from the bakery on a Saturday. Um, and usually I eat them immediately because they're just that good. But I didn't, so I was like, "Oh, I'll eat that." So that's all I had yesterday. Um, that's for right now. Headaches when I cough. Um, my temperature is just it's nothing wild. Like it's just mild spikes. It's just a pendulum or whatever you want to call it, just up and down and up and down. And I fear that like if I try to do anything about it, it just makes it worse. Like if I'm cold and I like try to like put a blanket over myself, I'll end up like I was on Friday. I do want to get in contact with a doctor to see if I'm actually suffering with a condition or if this is just maybe it's like a mixture of things. Like maybe on Friday I had a cold, Saturday I had like the flu or something like that. But I don't know. I am due to be working on Wednesday. Hopefully it's fixed by then, but really it's just there's only like one outside of today. There's just one day that I can try to rest and recover. And then on top of that, I'm working Thursday and Friday, and then working Wednesday and Thursday. On Friday, I'm going to see a comedian. On Saturday, we're going out for my birthday, and then on Sunday, we're going to see the Chainsaw Man film. I'm not going to do a review for the Chainsaw Man film. I'm just going to do that as part of the final review for the show. Um. So, you know, when it comes to like comedian film and going out for my birthday, these are all things that have already been booked and like can't really be taken back. Plus, these are like luxuries. I don't want to have to not attend or anything like that. As for work, I think I'm able to get away with taking those 2 days off work, Wednesday and Thursday, because the way that work works is that you don't get sick days, you get sick periods. So Saturday is the start of the sick period. If I'm feeling fine by Wednesday, Sunday will be the end of the sick period. If I'm not feeling fine by Wednesday, it'll be Thursday is the end of the sick period. Um. So, just fingers crossed. Middle review. Excuse me, Devil May Cry 5. I hate V. His combat, like a cool character, but the combat absolutely sucks. I get the story reasons for it, but it's just it's just terrible. Like there's nothing else you can say about it. The game, like the location of the game is fictional, but it was heavily inspired by London, and I kind of like that because London's a shithole, so it's the kind of perfect setting for a DMC game. Um, I had a prediction that around mission 10 they'd bring back Dante, and they did, and you'd play as him, which is cool. Dante is the GOAT. In terms of player characters, Nero is really cool as well, except that I don't like the whole arm thing. And V just sucks. The boss, I'm not the biggest fan of, especially with the fact that you've had to fight him 3 times at this point now, I think. Like, with the whole crystal thing, it's like it's his defense or something like that. It's just. I hate it. Just stop having us fight the same boss over and over again. And I think the only other thing I have to say is I thought I was playing Devil May Cry, not Bugs May Cry, because like all these fucking enemies look like just creepy crawlies, and it's just if I wanted to play a game where I'm fighting against that, I would have played Helldivers. It makes my skin itch.